What's up, friends? Welcome to SPDM TV. My name is Mike, part of the SPDM crew, and I watch a lot of TV. We talk about various TV topics, reviews, and general appreciation of TV, past and new. You can follow me on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Serialized at MLHT2452 to see what all I'm watching. So, way back when, and by way back when, I mean a couple of years ago, it's not like it's that long. I used to write for a website where they gave me the opportunity to podcast. And what I did was that I'm taking a look at some of these episodes that I did before and looking to see if I can kind of introduce them to a new audience. So I am going to do a series where I release some of those episodes just so that I can showcase just some of the past work that I've done. Healthy and Hilkis. Uh, uh, I have a guest here today to talk about it and why it stood the test of time so far, and just some of the best moments, some of the best episodes of the show. So again, this is late. I apologize. The show that we're talking about had an anniversary in April. I suck, whatever, but luckily I have a guest who sucks more. So I have my buddy
Ew.
Jason on here. Well, what's up, Jason? How's it going?
It's going well.
That's good.
Yeah.
So the show we're talking about today is Game of Thrones. I'm sure all of you have heard of Game of Thrones at minimum, even if you are too snobby to watch it. But Game of Thrones is HBO's, dare I say, it's definitely not their best show because, things like The Wire and The Sopranos and all that stuff, they exist. But I would argue that it's probably their most successful show and probably their most popular show. So we could just leave it at that. But Game of Thrones premiered, in April of 2011. So Game of Thrones is just hitting puberty in terms of its age from its premiere. So that's fun. I'm sure that I know it makes me feel a little old, but I can't speak for you. But I'm gonna tell a quick story really quick because I watched Game of Thrones a little bit when I was living in California, and when I moved back to Illinois, I got more into it, and I actually introduced Game of Thrones to Jason. Do you remember that?
Yeah, true story. The way, okay, so I had not seen any of it at all when I was living in Phoenix, and then I moved back to Illinois. And yeah, we were just chilling out, right? And we were trying to figure out what to watch or do. And then you're like, hey, how about Game of Thrones? I was like, what is that? And the way you described it to me,
I poorly explained it. Very,
yeah,
very
I
poorly.
don't remember the details exactly, but you were talking about like fantasy and like, I don't know, just like dragons and stuff. And I was just like, I don't know, this sounds pretty dumb. But
Well,
yeah, you can take it over
when
from there.
when you think about it, this concept is really dumb. It's really stupid, but I think where Game of Thrones succeeded a little bit is just the fact that it's a little bit more grounded and it's more about, just how a bunch of, you know, rich people figure out how to get this, arguably the best throne ever. It looks super uncomfortable, but it is the coolest looking throne I've ever seen. But I we watched, so he said when we talked about, and he finally agreed to it, he said one episode. That's all I'm watching. This is all I'm giving it is one episode. We get to the end, and he's like, "Okay, let's keep going." So we keep going, and this is back in the day when I had the Blu-rays of this, and we got through a couple discs, and it was it was night, and he was like, "Okay, I gotta go, but I want to keep watching this."
Yeah.
And then from there, the I think one of my favorite things about Game of Thrones is that eventually we kind of talked about it and we introduced it to a bunch of our friends. And then I think one of my favorite times watching Game of Thrones was when we went to your house. I think that was like, I believe that was season two or season three is when we started watching it at
Hmm.
your house. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I remember talking about it with your dad a little bit as well, because he was like, what is this? Like, what are we watching?" And then he picked up the books and he was like, "Okay, this is
Yeah.
pretty cool. There's something here."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So
leave it up to that old man.
yeah. So
Yeah, no, I agree. That was definitely that was a lot of fun having everybody come over and watch. But
yeah.
yeah, for sure, I do I very much do remember just like okay, this is awesome. I was wrong, but I have to go.
Yeah.
I can't keep watching this right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that it is because of that story that is the main reason why I invited you on for this, because like it shares a significance in our relationship. You know, not to get all sentimental and crap, but I don't know, like you and I have had a couple instances where we watch something, we introduce it to a lot of our friends, and they're like, "Oh, this is awesome!" Like we did that with, I think the one that stands out for me is when you and I went to a movie and the movies, and we were gonna go see Hostel, but it was sold out. And you were like, "I want to go see that one." And you're like, I've never even heard of this movie. What is this movie?" And it was Grandma's Boy, and we saw it, and boy, it is the guiltiest of guilty pleasure
Yeah.
movies for me. I may be writing an article about it for another site that I write for, about movies that are rated low that I would rate really high, even though they're not very good movies.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Anyways, back to Game of Thrones. So Jason, in that first instance, and I guess subsequently from from everything that's going on, or everything that happened with Game of Thrones, why'd you keep watching it? What was it about it that you were just like, "Yep, this is awesome. I was wrong."
Yeah, I think up to that point, the only sort of similar thing that I've ever seen willingly was like the Lord of the Rings stuff, and that was a little too much fantasy for me, and like a little like over the top in terms of I don't know, just yeah, I guess the fantasy part of it just it was just too much. And so with Game of Thrones, that's kind of what I was expecting by
Mhm.
your description of it, and then it turned out to be just way more like grounded, like you said. I was instantly able to grasp onto what was happening, and then sort of get the gravity of everything. And then, of course, you latch on to certain characters right away, and I was like, oh, it's Boromir, cool. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I think that's what kept me going. And then obviously, as the story grew, the interest grew, and this was also one of the first pieces of media, whether that be movie or TV, where I kind of started looking at theories about what's going to happen, that kind of stuff. And so it was, it all sort of just kind of came together, sort of at the right time, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of on the opposite end of this. Like I love the high fantasy stuff. And it's one of those things that I became intrigued, kind of similar to you, just by, no matter what you're looking for, there is a character for you in this. There's a character, and it's two ways. There's a character that you want to root for, and there's a character that you want to die. Like
Oh, Cersei right away.
every season has a bunch of those characters, and the nice thing about Game of Thrones is that you have so many to choose from that it can be sometimes a little overwhelming. You do need to watch this a couple of times in order to kind of grasp exactly what's going on, because it can be confusing at times, kind of similar to that Lord of the Rings. It's like, what are these things? Like, why is this elf taller than these hobbits? Like, I don't get it.
Hmm.
But it's kind of tricky to keep all these families in like lined up, because they're all so similar in a lot of ways. These are, for the most part, pretentious, rich people, and
Hmm.
they all just want one thing for the most part, and that's power. And that's kind of just your central theme in this, is that who is going to win this Game of Thrones. And as the show is kind of progresses, you kind of just figure out pretty quick, it's like nobody's going to win this, because all of you are like, there's always going to be a huge disadvantage to all of these families. Like there's advantages and disadvantages, but kind of on the flip side as well, is that all these families are willing to burn everything down in order to get this throne, and then there's going to be nothing left. So who was, you already mentioned it before, about who is the character that you just instantly wanted to go, and that for you was Cersei from the start. So Cersei Lannister, played by Lena Headey, or whatever, is fantastic in this. Like the perfect you know person to play this, conniving, manipulative, smart, and ruthless character of Cersei Lannister, but what was it about her that you were just like, no, 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 I can't do this.
It was her face.
She does have amazing RBF.
Yeah,
Like
like
very much so.
instantly, I was just like, "Oh, I don't like that." But then, obviously, as that first episode goes on, you're just like, "Ooh, okay."
Okay. I'm gonna stop you right there. We're going full spoilers on this. Like, I'm sorry if you haven't watched this. That's on you.
Oh
Like,
yeah, it's been what, 4 years off air?
it has been 4 years off the air now, almost 4 years to the dot, pretty
Yeah,
much.
so come on.
But what Jason's referring to is that first episode. You just kind of something just feels off about the Lannister family, and then you realize it's like, oh, Cersei is in a relationship with her brother, and they're on the King's Road and everything like that. They're in the town of Winterfell, which I'm sure we'll get to them in a minute, but and the first episode ends like, and I remember watching this first episode with you, and you were just like, wait, what? Like, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
And then to make matters even worse, like, how can this situation get any worse? It's like, oh, child attempted murder, like where Jaime Lannister pushes poor Bran Stark out of a window, and it not only takes away his ability to walk, but he takes away his like pretty much ability to function as a normal human being.
Oh yeah.
Well, because
Yeah.
Bran Stark was great in that first episode, and then he just sucked for the rest of the series.
He just got increasingly weirder and creepier, and it is just so uncomfortable. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, that like with Jamie, after he pushes him out, he's just like, meh, whatever.
It just casually like the things we do for love, and then just pushes him out.
Yeah.
And that is how the first episode goes. And you're just like, I just remember looking at you, and you're just like, UTF, man, like what is going on? Like,
Yeah. It was yeah. I was not used to this style of television.
you mean the HBO style of television where everything is gritty, and people can die at any time, any moment, and everything like that?
Correct. Because I did not watch The Sopranos or The Wire, when they were airing. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
it's all good.
I know.
Yeah. So on the flip side, who's your character, not just throughout like just that first season, but who'd you root for the whole time? I guess it changes, but who was the one that you rooted for the most?
Yeah, I think most consistently, I mean, it was John after a certain point. But honestly, I think Arya was kind of one that I rooted for most consistently. There were some
Yeah.
times in the middle seasons where I was just sort of like, okay, this is I don't like the way the character is right now, and also I don't like the storyline necessarily. But yeah, I mean, John, obviously, it became very obvious that like he's the guy that they're going to start sort of centering around after a while. So like, especially after all the stuff on the wall, yeah, he just sort of became my central character, because I felt like the wall stuff and everything beyond the wall and everything with the White Walkers was more interesting than all the stuff in King's Landing and whatever. So
Okay, this is going to be an interesting conversation then, because that was something that I was eventually going to get into about, that is a stark difference with everything, in Game of Thrones, is that there is a contingent of people who, and it's kind of ironic coming from you, who says you're not into like the high fantasy stuff, and yet your favorite part of, or the storyline that you kind of invested in the most, was the one that has perhaps the most fantasy, with the exception of maybe one
that's
other
true.
character.
Pick a lane here, man.
Yeah, it's all good. You can have multiple layers. It's all good. I accept you, warts and all, so it's all good. I did like all the stuff in King's Landing.
Mhm.
I thought that was the most intriguing part, because that was the central premise of the show at the end of the day, and that's kind of the thing that I gravitated to, and that's why, like, from season one, I've always been a Tyrion Lannister fan, and for Peter Dinklage to just make this like a career best everything for him, was just nothing short of astounding. Because most of my, we'll get into this later, but we have top, how many did we decide to do? 5 or 10? Yeah. So our top 5 episodes, and Tyrion is featured very heavily in
Mhm.
all of mine. But he was the one that just I related to the most. Someone who's just constantly underestimated, just by the way that he looks. Smart, cutting, all that stuff. Very different from his family, which can definitely appreciate that, and just shades of heroic opportunities. But also, he's an idiot as well. Like
Mhm.
he knows, to steal a line that is said to someone else, like he knows nothing. Like he thinks he does, but like he knows absolutely nothing. And just on the flip side, like my person that I just could not stand throughout the course of most of the show was Littlefinger. Like I just
Yeah.
Littlefinger, like from the jump, you just feel like something's off with him. This guy's slimy. This guy is just, ugh. I don't
Yeah.
like this guy. And then the ultimate betrayal in season 1 is that he's like one of the main reasons why Ned Stark, who is Boromir from the Lord of the Rings series, and poor Sean Bean just dies,
Just
and he just dies in everything. And I think that's one of the things, because I didn't read the books beforehand. Like
yeah.
I don't
Mhm.
read the books beforehand. I go into these things trying to just watch this and just see what happens. And Sean Bean was just heavily featured in all the marketing for this. And for them to just kill him off, like at the like not even in the last episode, but the penultimate episode, which the ninth episode of all of these seasons, or the one before, is usually when something big goes down,
Yeah.
which became kind of like a signature thing for 2 shows around this time, this and The Walking Dead. Like
Mhm.
nothing ever happened in the final episode that was of like great significance, but like the one before that was like, oh, okay, something's going down now. And yeah, that was the moment where I was like, wow, nobody is safe in this. And that's something that Game of Thrones continually proved time and time and time again. Not afraid to kill off beloved characters, important characters, anything like that. It just goes to show that you've got a stacked roster of people that can take up the story, even if somebody important or significant dies, and still carry the story on in a way that is still palatable.
Yeah. And I guess for the most part, the writing was good.
For the most part, the writing is good, because there is there is the a couple of differentiating lines for Game of Thrones fans. There is the contingent of people who like the fantasy stuff, and the contingent of people who like the more political intrigue and everything like that. But there's also a separate contingent of people who like what they did when they ran out of source material, which the show changed, period. Like it just
It
changed. Like I'm
changed.
not gonna
Yeah.
say it was good or bad change, because change is inevitable. But like when you don't have any more source material, and you just have to come up with this on your own, the story is gonna go in ways that just it's unexpected now. Even your staunch Game of Thrones fans are that have read the books too have been like, okay, this is new territory for me too. So I don't know what's gonna happen. So it's the decisions that they made post source material. Those are the things that are going to be scrutinized for a long time. And me personally, I'm someone who's like, you know what? I blame all of this on George R. R. Martin, who's the author of these. He's he's
That's
set
true.
a great he's set a great table for this story to flourish as is. But and I'm sure to some extent or another you can relate to this, because Jason's a graphic designer. So he's, ever since I've known him, he's been a very artsy person. And he's somebody who knows full well that like you can't rush your process, and you can't rush art. It just kind of comes to you and just kind of goes from there. But I think the thing that's frustrating for me about George R. R. Martin is that, bro, you've been teasing this for a long time. And I don't mean to fat shame people or shame people for like how they look or anything like that, but dude is not in the best looking health.
Right.
And if like at any time he could potentially keel over, not even just because of his health, because HBO is running this man ragged, getting him to do stuff for them. So like you gotta finish this thing eventually, because like otherwise, what, like you're gonna have somebody who like has to transcribe all of this from like what I'm assuming are like conspiracy theory level notes that you have for this, or just like cardboard cutouts, or like weird messed up drawings that you decided to scribble with your own blood or something like that. I don't know, but like, bro, like
Yeah, I agree.
you,
It's
you
all people I think are maybe a little too so they okay. The show has had set themselves up for spectacular failure simply because it sort of redefined how people kind of expected TV to flow. And if you can't keep up with that, then, and I get it, part of it's by choice, right? The showrunners thought they were going to do something else, so they had to wrap it up pretty quickly. So there's definitely fault there, but at the same time, I think people are maybe a little too critical of
yeah,
this stuff, because it's not people are going to remember it for the bad stuff at the end, right?
yes,
Which is unfair because
absolutely.
there are 6.5 seasons that are very good, and you can't just throw that away because quite frankly, because somebody made a career choice. Oh well,
Yep.
you know.
Yeah. Well, and I think Game of Thrones fans are arguably among some of the worst fans out there. Like I'm sorry, they just are, because and this is emblematic of just the current state of fandom in general, where it's like these people cannot do, like the showrunners in the eyes of like some of these true fans, they cannot do anything that would appease everyone.
Yeah,
Like there's always going to be some sense of controversy. There's, everything like that. And it's unfair, very much so, because, you can't just blame the two people that are just in charge of all of this. There's plenty of blame to go around, but also you don't have to blame anyone. Just
right. Just
why
take it
can't
for
you
what
just
it
be
is.
yeah, why can't you just be happy with the entertainment that you're given? Because one of the other site that I write for, the guy who's in charge of it, he did a podcast about this recently, where it's like I'm kind of changing the way that I view and critique movies and TV shows. I'm not critiquing it in the sense like it's good or bad. I'm starting to critique it. It's like I appreciate what they were trying to do, but it wasn't for me. And I think that's a
Yeah.
healthier way
Hmm.
to look at things like that. Like there's a lot in Game of Thrones that I enjoyed, but there's things that didn't work for me
Yeah.
too. And that's okay. I challenge anybody to look at a show that like was flawless for you through and through. Because
Right.
guess what? It doesn't exist. It just
Exactly.
doesn't. Like even like the first show that you and I talked about, The Office, neither of us liked the first season very
Yeah.
much. That first season was not good, and that's that's part of the deal, is that you gotta shows gotta feel their way through, and they gotta just figure out what they're doing, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and I feel like in particular with endings of shows, people just aren't going to like them no matter what, just because it's the end. Like they're they're expressing their feelings of mourning through finger pointing and and making sure that everybody remembers all the bad stuff, right? So, but on
Well,
that
I
note, my first pick is actually going to be pretty controversial, I think. Oh,
really your number. Okay, what is your number 5 favorite episode? I'm now nervous. Okay,
I honestly really like season 8, episode 6, The Iron Throne.
the last episode.
Yep,
The last episode.
I do. I told you, man, it's gonna be controversial.
Let's just say this. You're very lucky that this is an audio podcast right now. Okay, sell me on this, because I'm not one of those people who's ripping the ending to shreds and everything like that. I thought there was a lot about this episode that worked for me.
Yes,
There's one glaring thing that didn't really work for me, but it was a choice. It made sense, and it just wasn't for me. It just wasn't for me.
I think there was a certain logic where it made sense, and I mean I think I know what you're talking about, probably, but
Go ahead.
okay.
Go ahead. Justify your ridiculous pick right now.
First of all, I just liked it. Okay, so because it was the end, there's a for me. when it comes to endings, movies or TV shows, I'm not expecting anything crazy, quite frankly. And the simpler, the better. So for me, so the first half was definitely better than the second half. Tyrion. So the episode before, Daenerys just like
Just
snaps and goes super
goes
rage.
goes all nuts,
Yeah,
which
and she destroys the city with the dragons.
and say what you will about that moment, because that within itself was a controversial decision,
Yep,
but also it's one that had been foreshadowed for a
yep.
long time. So I don't understand why so many people thought it was controversial.
I know.
But
I agree with you. It was probably just because of the way it was presented and done. But so now we open up the aftermath of that crazy rage machine, and so Snow and Tyrion, and I mean, I think who else was there? I think it was Davos was there. They were all just sort of like in shock, and sort of you get this whole episode in the very beginning, at least you get the idea that they were like, oh well, we hitched our wagon to the wrong horse. Like,
we done messed up.
yeah. And but what I find so interesting was the way that it was all done, in that the again, there wasn't a lot of talking,
No.
but like what they were thinking and like how they were feeling. And then once they start getting into the actual thick of the episode, even, I mean, it really shows how good of actors, especially Peter Dinklage and Kit Harington are, because they both showed just the right emotions without going overboard, right? So I liked that in the very beginning there. The middle where Jon and Daenerys finally kiss because they're freaking nephew and aunt. So that's
Yep.
gross.
Right. That's the moment that's gross, not the moment where they have sex at the end of season 6 or
Well,
7. 7. Okay, cool. Cool. Glad to
I
see
mean,
where your head's at with that.
there's that too. But I mean, like that, it's still like just even that simple. It's just gross. It was like, I don't know. So anyway, they and then John stabs her and kills her, like to sort of break the wheel, right?
I, I
But
think I think one, like, I'll get back to you in 1 second. Watching the behind the scenes when they like do the table read for
uh,
that is fantastic. It's just he's so shocked by that, and Amelia Clark is like, "Yep, you kill me, jerk."
yeah. Oh man, I have to watch that then. Yeah. So she dies, right, and then the dragon gets super pissed and melts the Iron Throne, and like symbolically sort of breaks that wheel. But like to your point, it's never gonna change, right? So like symbolically things are different, and like the wheel's been broken. We could do something new in Westeros, but like no, because it's just going to be the same. And in fact, what I also like about this episode is later on when they have their meeting, it's just business as usual. And so like it just goes to show, like, it doesn't matter who is looking for power, but somebody is always going to be looking for power, and somebody always has to pick up the rubble, you know. And so to me, the show probably could have just ended right there, quite frankly. But then the second half, it wasn't great. It wasn't good necessarily, but like what I enjoyed about it was that they gave everybody a happy ending. You know, Arya, she's always been one to be on her own, be sort of a wild card. She goes out west, just sort of looking for the independence. Sansa declares the North to be free. That's fine. John goes back to the to the wall where he belongs.
Where he belongs.
And yeah, and Tyrion, he's doing the job that he knows how to do. And I mean, the only real kind of gross issue is Bran was chosen to be king because he has a quote unquote good story.
By this point, they all have good stories, so
Exactly.
that negates that argument
I
from this wooden monster that they pick
Yeah.
for the Iron. I largely agree with everything that you said. The acting in the first half is just so good because just the looks that they give each other. Some of the cinematic choices, like in terms of like the way it was shot,
Mhm.
there's a scene where Daenerys is walking towards the camera, and the dragon wings come like behind
Mhm.
her. Like,
Mhm.
oh, that was cool. And I'll
Mhm.
never forget the conversation that Danny and John have at, like when they're in the throne room, and she's just looking at it, and John is like, this isn't the way that we should be doing this.
Yeah,
um
right.
and she's just like, yeah, we'll just make them. Like, oh,
Yeah,
that's bruh, that's a red flag. No, no,
I
no, no, no,
know.
no, no, no. And even like he does it, and it's shocking and everything like that, but even the dragon knows, like, yeah, this was the right move.
Right. Exactly. Right.
This was the good call.
Exactly. So I know that there are probably better episodes, either technically or, either by
I,
fan, whatever. But like, I like this
I
one.
I don't know, man. Like from a technical standpoint, this one's pretty on point. Like it just it's well shot. That boy, those dragons look fantastic. Like in the
Yeah.
later parts of the season, like they don't look so good at the beginning,
No, they
the
don't.
beginning of the series. And House of the Dragon, I'm not sure if you've watched that yet, but those
Uh-huh.
dragons all look great. That's
Yes.
probably the best part of the series, because that
Yeah.
series is
More dragons.
weird. So,
That series is weird, but we'll see how it goes.
all right, my number five is season six, episode 10, The Winds of Winter. So this was one where there's just a lot going on in this episode, and pick your poison in terms of pick and choose what you're invested in and what you're interested in for this. So there's a couple big plot points in this that are worth noticing or worth mentioning. So the first one is Daenerys actually like set sails for Westeros in this. That scene where, it just pans and it has all of the ships with the Unsullied and the Dothraki, and these three dragons, and then you have Daenerys with Tyrion, and just a whole bunch of people that you've been clamoring and waiting for all of these people to finally get together and kind of like condense the story a little bit.
Mm.
It finally happened in this. Then there was, it's gonna snow. It's winter almost. So it's
Mhm.
like, oh, okay, cool. That's this is gonna be fun for
Mhm.
everybody. So this is post Battle of the Bastards as well, which I'm not gonna lie, that was a pretty hard episode for me not to include in this.
Mhm.
But
I didn't include it either.
I struggled a little bit with the Battle of the Bastards for a couple reasons. One, the Deus Ex Machina at the end with Littlefinger's army bailing them out. I struggled a little bit with that. I struggled a little bit with, I don't know, just John just acting like an idiot in
Yeah.
in this. But
Yeah.
arguably, the Battle of the Bastards is probably the best shot battle in Game of Thrones. But
Mhm.
it's just not good enough to make either of our top five, I guess. So, but I think the thing that I like about this, okay, no, there's two things. Like I'm struggling to figure out which thing I like the best. Like this is where this is the moment where Cersei seizes the throne, and that was like shocking within itself. But then she blows up
Boom.
Baelor, and
Yeah.
kills like a solid contingent of the staff, or the cast, the Tyrell family, which Loras Tyrell was already going to be on his way out. He was on his way to becoming the legendary Iron Fist for Marvel, which that didn't work out, but he was still going to do it, so that he needed to go. But to get rid of Marjorie Tyrell, who, that was a bummer. And then to have her, her last kid just look at the situation. It was like, nope, I'm just gonna jump out a window because
Walk out the window.
just I can't take this. And just the way that Cersei, everything that you said about like, nope, earlier in this episode where you're just like, nope, can't do it with this
Yep.
person.
Zero F's given.
Full display, full on display here. She is, she's getting dressed as if she's getting ready for battle. She's drinking wine as the set blows up and everything like that, and just the dread that you feel once you see it's like, yeah, she's getting on the Iron Throne. Like something feels weird about this.
Yeah, so actually this was my number 4 pick, but
We didn't even plan this.
so a couple things about this episode for me. Well, obviously when Daenerys starts finally sailing, it's like, yes, finally, we're like, we finally get to see this. Like, let's do it. But Cersei, she up until that point, and even I don't know, this is a tricky spot, but like she has always justified the killings and stuff like that for her children, right?
Yeah.
And she very well could have justified this one for Tommen, or yeah, it was Tommen, right? Who was on,
It was
yeah,
summoned because Joffrey was long gone by this
right.
time, and the other one, the girl, got
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
This is
she
gonna make
got
me sound
killed
like a
by,
jerk. She got killed in a stupid way, but yeah,
but yeah, so like, but this felt very different, and it felt like, and the way that they shot it made it seem like she was just doing it for funsies, right? And so that was an interesting change in character, and I thought obviously for the better, because like if you didn't know that she was the bad guy before, like you know she's the bad guy.
yeah, for sure.
But the music throughout that whole scene or setup, you know, it was, I mean, it was intense, and you're on the edge of the seat. What's going to happen?
Oh
So
yeah, just that kid that's just running around that underground and everything like that. Like, yeah, it's just really tense and just master class in just filmmaking and everything like that. So kudos to them. And this is also an episode where it's like you get to like the spot of like, kudos to you if you notice some of this stuff, but like this one also, I can't believe we've gotten to this whole point without mentioning the opening credits and the theme song, which
oh, I know.
is I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty high up there in terms of you can't get more epic than the Game of Thrones theme music. For a while, the Game of Thrones theme music was my alarm clock ringtone because what better way to wake up and feel like you're gonna conquer the day with the Game of Thrones theme music,
Right.
and then you spend 6 hours doing jack with your day, and then all of a sudden you're just like, I'm not going to have an adventure, am I? But anyways, but the opening credit sequence
Yep,
as well is just a visual masterpiece
it's really
with
good.
the map and everything like that. And this was one where for the longest time Winterfell was under the control of somebody else. So the Boltons had control of Winterfell, and the little Bolton flag, the flayed man, which is
Mhm.
super gross, but whatever. The flag is on there. But this was the first episode in a long time where the Starks retake Winterfell because they won the
Mhm.
Battle of the Bastards, and the little Stark flag is there. And I
Yeah,
was like, oh, that's a nice touch. Good for you. Good on all
that's
of you.
true. I did love that. I mean, that was part of the experience. It's just trying to find what changes and all that stuff, kind of like with The Simpsons and what Bart's going to write on the, you know,
For sure.
well,
Do you have anything else that you want to talk about
no.
with your number four? So my number four is season one, episode 9, where Ned Stark dies. That's my number four. It's just so shocking because season one already had some pretty prominent deaths in it that you just knew that like nobody was safe. So, you know, Robert Baratheon, who's king, like at the beginning of this, like, and it's often like a forgotten person in the
Hmm.
grand scheme of all of this. He's already dead in this, so everything's in chaos, and like the Lannisters seize their moment to put Joffrey on the throne. And by this time, also, Daenerys's brother, who I don't even remember his name, like he has probably one of the best deaths in all of Game of Thrones, where
Golden Crown.
Khal Drogo, who this is my first time seeing Jason Momoa in
Hmm.
anything. Like this guy is jacked, and he kills Daenerys's brother and everything like that by melting gold and like pouring it on him, and then he dies, and like, oh, it's gross, but it's awesome at the same time. But this also, to me, it's a turning point for two reasons. One, because obviously Ned Stark dies and everything changes after Ned Stark dies, for a couple reasons. Because again, nobody's safe, but also this sets in motion just like the rest of the story, pretty
Hmm.
much. But also, this also represents a stark but a turning point with production value with this,
Mm.
because this is the last time that they kind of just they let everyone know that a battle's going on, but they get the budget from this point forward to actually put on battles. Like,
Mhm.
because there's the Starks go to war with the Lannisters, and Tyrion is getting ready for war and everything like that, and very very cheaply on a budget and everything like that, he gets knocked out, bringing his horde of imbeciles with him into battle. He gets knocked out, and then Braun is secretly one of the MVPs of this show. He just like, Tyrion wakes up like a couple seconds later, the battle's over, and he was just like, "You're a SHIT soldier," and everything like that. And you just see just all these people who are just dead. And you're just like, wow, this
Yeah.
I really had Game of Thrones had a little bit more of a following and everything like that, and it was maybe if this all happened in season 2, they would have gotten this battle, but they didn't
Mhm.
this season because they just couldn't afford it.
Yeah, because wasn't what was that episode? Blackwater? Wasn't that like the first?
And spoiler, we will be talking about that.
Okay.
So yeah, Blackwater was the first real battle that Game of Thrones.
Yeah. All right.
What's your number 3?
That's a good question. Trying to look at my freaking. Oh, okay. Here I am. All right. So apparently, I like a lot of the later season stuff because the Long Night, season 8, episode 3. I really like this one again, and I know again this is one of those like there are better options out there, but this also felt like for me, it also felt like another point where like honestly they could have just ended the series. So
Just not resolve who gets on the Iron Throne, who because honestly, this is a
cares?
moment. This is like the perfect moment in this episode or in this season where it's like, honestly, who cares? This is much bigger than everything that's going on right now.
That's what I'm saying. And so I think sort of to drive home the idea that I liked all of this kind of stuff more than the stuff in Westeros, like this makes sense to me. So the Long Night, it's just one gigantic epic battle, and it's the battle between the White Walkers and the humans. And I mean, quite frankly, it was just a lot of fun to watch. And
Yeah,
there's not much more to it. It's just it was a lot of fun to watch, and this is the kind of stuff that I kind of expect out of big budget shows and movies and stuff like that. Like I want to see a big epic battle between two sides, right? Now, having said that, obviously there are some problems I had with it, but whatever, it's fine.
yeah, yeah.
And quite frankly, the spot where Arya kills the Night King. I mean,
That was so when I wrote about this for Scribe, I did my top 25-ish episodes. No, moments in Game of Thrones, and Arya killing the Night King was my number 6. Like it was that high up there. So I'll give you credit for that. However, there were a couple of things. This is a very divisive battle, unfortunately. When arguably it should have been the most important. So
mhm.
like so like I had a couple of issues with this battle. The first is that I was one of those people who I could barely see this battle.
Yes,
Like
the
it
lighting
just
was awful.
the lighting was pretty bad, and I think that's partially because of the way it's shot. I think it also partially was because of the way Game of Thrones rendered it to make it available on HBO Max, or was it HBO Now? I don't know, but it was available on HBO. So there was that. All of these characters should have died. Like
Absolutely.
every single one of them should have died. And the people that you thought were gonna die definitely died. Like, Jorah Mormont
Mhm,
died. Theon Greyjoy, which
mhm.
the redemption of Theon Greyjoy was one of my favorite moments. Also, as well, it was like pretty high up there. But like,
Yeah,
yeah,
being the way he is, he's just like, well, thanks for dying for me.
Bye. Like and here we go with me like putting on my fanboy cap and everything like that. I think this would have been a perfect moment where Jamie Lannister would have gone out. You know, I'm not thrilled with what they did with him after all of this, between what happened with him and Brienne and him going back to Cersei after this. I think this
Mhm.
would have been the perfect way for him to go out, you know, doing something heroic. But
Mhm.
no, they didn't choose to do that. So let's just say that the choice to let him live was not for me. Every single person in this battle should have died,
For
because
sure.
the sheer number of people that or the sheer number of White Walkers there were in comparison. Because like the first moment where you see the White Walkers come in and it just feels like a wave, like, oh, like no, all of these people should be dead right now. And I'm also very glad that they didn't succumb to the need for fan service in this by, you know, having the Night King try to rise people up and have Ned Stark coming back, you know, from the tombs of Winterfell, so that he could enact his revenge on all of these people. But you cannot deny that this battle was probably the most significant battle of the entire series. I'll give you that. There were,
Yeah, yeah, and
and I,
like I said, it was just. I mean, forget about the lighting or whatever, but like it was fun to watch. Like
yeah,
you were in it the whole time.
and this was an episode that I was on the edge of my seat the
Yeah,
entire time. Like I
right.
wasn't sure what was going to happen, how it was going to happen, and I was very satisfied with Arya being the one to kill the
Mhm.
Night King. Like I love that. So as much as I'm struggling with it being in your top 5, I will, you know, it's your list, but now that I'm thinking about this, like there's a lot of good that's there. And again, this is the problem with, you know, the looking critically at things and then putting the fan cap back on. It's just like what I want to see as a fan versus what, you know, what I get on screen, and just this is what you get. Like it either worked for you or you didn't. Like you shouldn't just go on legislating how things end, even though I wanted Jamie Lannister to die. Whatever.
All right, and like I said, I would have been fine if they just like stopped the series.
How awesome would that have been? Like this would have been the last episode. The Night King's on the throne, and he just smirks, and then cut to black,
Yeah,
and that's
that
it.
would have been. Yeah.
That would have made a lot of sense. I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, my number 3 is season 4, episode 6, The Laws of Gods and Men. This is the one where a couple episodes after this is smushed right in the center of the storyline of Joffrey Baratheon's murder at his
Mhm.
wedding, which I don't wish death on anybody, but that he had it coming.
He
He
had it coming
certainly
for sure.
he certainly had it coming. And Tyrion is the prime suspect, which that is, you know, come on, like, are you going to do a little bit of an investigation into this, or are you just going to, you know, just accuse him of this and
Nah.
that's it? But the trial that they do, this kangaroo court, where Tyrion is just like this was the moment where I was like, give this man the Emmy right now. You know, Peter Dinklage, his final thing where it's just like, I wish I would have killed him.
Yeah.
I wish that I was the monster that you all see, but and then he demands trial by combat, which
Right. It sets up the
the
death
and the
ever.
his Oberyn Martell will go down in Game of Thrones history as the greatest. What if the showrunners had let him live? And
Mhm.
which that's not this group's style and everything like that, but it was still one of those things where it's like he was a fan favorite. This was my first exposure to Pedro Pascal, so it was like, wow, this guy's awesome. And look at him now. He is in arguably 2 of the most popular shows on television right now. So good for him. But it it sets up it sets up that episode, and it's coming off the heels of Joffrey's murder. But like this to me will go down as Peter Dinklage. Like to me, Peter Dinklage's best performance in all of Game of Thrones. That's what it boils down to. And then it also sets up him killing his dad and Shay at the end too, which that was fun and
Yeah.
unexpected. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that almost made it up there, but had to be true to myself.
What's your number two?
What am I on two? Okay, yeah. So this one was a toss up. I have like three that I could put, but okay, honestly, I think just looking over my notes right here. Yeah, so I think I'll put season 5, episode 8, Hard Home on there
Okay,
as number two.
That's my number one. So
Okay. Yeah, so the one thing, so to me, this was like super peak Game of Thrones. And so, you finally kind of start to see the power of the Night King and the White Walkers, and like you really kind of get the intensity of it, and the whole you really kind of get the stakes of what's happening beyond the wall finally. You kind of known what was happening, and like these zombies are out there, but like you never really see them. But like this was pretty awesome. That shot at the end where the Night King raises all
that will go down as it's obviously my favorite Game of Thrones moment, but just that moment in particular in this whole thing where a lot's happening in this.
Yep.
And like for example, Jon's sword, you find out, the Valyrian steel kills the White Walker, like the White Walker generals that like mess people up. Like that giant dude like is just getting overrun by all of these White Walkers. All of these White Walkers that like literally go off a cliff and then they just reanimate. There's something terrifying about that. But then the moment where the Night King just walks on that pier, just raises his hands and all those people wake up. Not only was that just so unexpected, but that is the ultimate your move, bruh move.
Right.
And I think that kind of ultimately is why this is my number one. Like this whole episode was fine generally, but it was just so unexpected that like you were not anticipating that this was going to be a giant battle that's happening right now. And even in the books, like I did some research and like this battle isn't even in the book. It's just talked about and glanced at. But for them to like bring this to life in this way, I give them extra credit for that.
Yep.
So, for all of those reasons, that's why this is my number.
Yeah. And it also for me kind of solidifies Jon as a leader, right?
He's the guy.
Like,
he's the
the
guy.
guy. Exactly. And so that was but all that was just too good.
Because this also sets up what happens to him at the end of season 5, where he brings all the wildlings back, and he's like trying to talk to all these people, and then they all like the contingent of people on the Night's Watch just stab him, and he's just like, for the watch. I'm like, even you, Ollie, you little jerk. Like,
I know.
why? But yeah, that was what comes about after this as well, because this is the last season with source material as well. So from here on out, it's like nobody knows what's going to happen from this point forward. So yeah, obviously my number 2 is Blackwater. So season 2, episode 9. Don't really have to explain this too much, because is Blackwater the best battle that Game of Thrones ever put on? No, but it's the first, and you give a little bit of extra credit for the first attempt, and it was an amazing.
It was good.
It was really great. There's a couple things that kind of stood out to me with this. So the first thing is the shot of Bronn shooting the shooting the flaming arrow and the blowing up of all of of Stannis Baratheon's fleet. Like that was awesome. Tyrion's speech where he's like, these are brave men knocking on our door. Let's go kill them. I was like, yeah, let's go kill them.
Just go kill them.
Just the production values on all of this, like these deaths were grisly. It's like this is war, man. And for the war to come this close to King's Landing as well, that was awesome. That was really cool to see. Not a huge fan that Tywin Lannister came in and saved the day, but hey, that's what happens. and also not a fan of Cersei almost murdering her kid's dad too. So glad to see that some things don't
No,
change. So,
she's just the worst.
but this is also one where it's the Hound as well. It's like, oh, like you're not
Okay.
just you're not just some sellsword. Or you have a line, and this is the line for you. Good for you, man.
Mhm.
Good for you, because you know, for Joffrey to be a little bee and just come out and just be like, "You guys got this. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go over here now." And
Yeah,
this is one, like this is another one where it's like Peter Dinklage is the MVP
exactly.
of this show. So yeah, that's why Blackwater's my number two. So we're on to your number one. What's your number one?
The Iron Throne again. No, again,
Love
this
that
one.
episode so much. I
Yeah, I propped it up. No, there are a couple here, but I really like season 4, episode 9, The Watchers on the Wall.
Oh, that was a great one. That's definitely in my top 10, but yeah, it just barely missed the cut for this one.
Yeah, I think what was interesting about it was that up until, I mean, it was sort of like the White Walkers. Like, we hear about these wildlings and like, how dangerous they are and all that stuff. And we like get little glimpses here and there, but like now they're finally coming head to head. And, obviously there's a whole love story too with Egrid and John. And I mean, yeah, I didn't care so much for that, but I understand why it was sort of sad when she died by
Ollie, just
Ollie. Thank you. Yes,
Ollie,
just
who
doing what he was told by Sam.
he just Ollie might be the worst character in all of Game of Thrones.
I know.
There, I said it. Hot take: a child is the worst character in all of Game of Thrones, and it just it wasn't the fact that he killed Ygritte. It wasn't that at all. It is the look that he gives John, just like,
Yeah, he was like,
I did it.
I did
You're
it.
you're welcome.
Yep, got you covered, bro. I know. So, oh my God, I know. And but what? Okay. So what really I enjoy about this is that it feels so confined, right? And like just there's no room, and so like that, kind of gives a little bit of intensity on its own. But then there was this one shot when they're down like in the main courtyard, and there's like just a single shot that
Oh yeah,
goes,
it just goes all around. It's like kind of an
yep.
overhead shot. Yeah, like that will go down as one of the coolest shots Game of Thrones ever got. Like,
Hmm.
sure, it's a little CG, but who cares? Like, it looks really cool because like they tried to do something similar in the Long Night
Right.
episode, but it just didn't have the same effect because the Watchers on the Wall just did it better.
Right. Yep. And so like if anything, that's probably like my favorite shot of the whole series. And so like I don't know. I mean, again, it's kind of a okay episode, but like the action of it, but also it kind of sets up John, becoming a leader, which leads to the whole thing where he, gets when he gets killed through mutiny and all that stuff. So this is just sort of like the very beginning of that.
So let's see. I wrote about this. So awesome tracking shot that takes us throughout the battle. The way that this was set up as well, with all the wildlings coming out of the woods as well.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, like there's a lot of them, man. And the way that John is just looking down and like, oh dear Lord,
Oh,
what am I gonna do now?
and one of my other favorite shots when one of the giants shoots an arrow through a guy and the dude just flies.
Flies back.
Like, yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I just like simple things, I guess.
That's 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 a good one. Like I can't begrudge you for that. So do you have any honorable mentions that you want to point out?
Yeah, the Iron Throne. Winter is coming. I know. I'm never gonna stop that bit. Season 1, episode 1. Winter is coming. Just sentimental pick. It's the first one I saw.
Yeah.
Got hooked. Otherwise,
The pilot's great. The pilot is among one of the better episodes because it has a hard job. It's got to set all of this up, and
yeah,
what better way to set all of this up by pushing a kid out the window by two incestuous. So
yeah. So I did rewatch it, and I'm not gonna lie, I was like, oh, this didn't really age very well. Like
It
it felt
just
really old, and
because
I
it is
also didn't
really
like how
old.
much setup there was. I mean, I
That's what
know they have to do it, but
that's what a
like,
pilot has to do, unfortunately. But
no,
yeah,
I
I
know,
get
but
I get what you're saying, though.
this is such an expansive world. Like it just seemed like it seems like they could have taken some of that and put it in the next episode or something. You know what I mean? Spread it out a little bit more. But so otherwise, the only other one kind of worth talking about, I guess, is the Dragon and the Wolf, season
Mm.
7, episode 7.
Yeah,
And
because that's the last episode where this is where it's like, oh, 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 oh no.
yeah.
Like you're rooting for John and Danny to get together most of the season, and then all of a sudden you're just like,
Oh,
oh,
wait a minute. Yeah,
oh,
gross. But other than that, there's where what else happened in that one? Oh yeah, I mean, I thought that one was kind of cool because of just like again these enemies are just like they're not killing each other, but they're facing off and like you feel the intensity. And then when the Hound kicks over the box,
yeah,
and then the White Walker comes out,
yeah,
and then yet Cersei's still just like, eh,
it's fine.
this is fine. So yeah, apparently I do. I like a lot of the
Like a
later
lot
stuff.
of the later stuff, which again, that's fine. If that is your prerogative, it's all good. You're entitled to your
Terrible
opinion.
opinions.
No, your opinions. They are your opinions, and there's that. The only other ones I'll point out, and this is also a sentimental pick, even though it's a horrendous episode. The Reigns of Castamere, the
Oh,
Red
God.
Wedding,
Yes.
because I will remember that episode because we were at your house watching it, and I didn't think they were gonna do it this early or that brutally. But your dad and I we're kind of giving each other looks like, I think this is when this is going to happen. So I kind of mosey my way to the back of the family room, kind of towards the kitchen where your dad was at. And we were chatting. I was like, I think they're actually going to do it this time. And they did. And the look of shock on all of your faces is like, this is not what I thought was going to happen right
Mhm.
now. Just the brutal, awful nature of how that happened. Rob Stark. Like it's bad enough that we lost Rob Stark. We also lost, his wife, their unborn child, and
Yep.
then just callously and just as a throwaway, oh, let's just kill Catelyn or Cat Stark
Yeah,
now
just for
too.
funsies.
Why not?
I
Why
know.
not? So that will go down as probably one of the most talked about
Mhm.
episodes as well. Because again, for all of those not in the know, it was just so unexpected, and you're just like, wow, you were just wow, okay, you went for it, good,
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
okay.
You're going for it. This is the kind of series we have. Okay.
You had already mentioned it beforehand about the season 8, episode 5, the one where the bells, I think,
Hmm.
what it's called, where Daenerys does burn down King's Landing. I
Hmm.
will give a special shout out because we finally got the Clegane Bowl, and I enjoyed it, even though it was very anticlimactic and it just ended up the way that it was always inevitably going to, with both of them dead. This episode will always go down as so me and Olivia, my wife, were watching it, and we were so invested in what was going on. We did not notice that Gwen was watching too. She had like gotten up out of her bed and was watching, and she was just like, so for the next like 2 or 3 weeks, she would just be telling everyone, it's like, Mommy and Daddy were watching something where people stuck glass in people's eyes. Like parents, parents of the year with this one.
It's funny.
And then I will give a shout out to season 6, episode 5, Hold the Door.
Yeah.
Look, like I didn't find this episode as devastating as a lot of people did. I was very sad to see Hodor die, even though I thought Hodor was,
There.
yeah, just
Yeah.
kind of a mindless oaf and everything like that. But to watch how this happens and like how it happened that he became Hodor,
Mhm.
I had two pervasive thoughts. The first is like, wow, that's really sad, but also this does not make a lick of sense,
Right.
which kind of undercuts the whole like everything about it. But I will give a shout out to it because it was really sad when that happens. George R. R. Martin did confirm it's like, yeah, this is how I wanted to tell the origin story of Hodor. So good for him for that. And also one last shout out to my sister who got me a hold the door stopper because she's a jerk like that. So
Of
Jason,
course, those things exist.
yeah. Jason, any last thoughts or anything else you want to say about Game of Thrones?
Yeah, I mean, I think like you said at the top, it's not the best TV show, but it's really entertaining. And for a long time it was just a good excuse to get people together. So really just want to make sure that people don't overthink some of these things, and just pure entertainment. That's all. It was good.
Well, I mean, I don't really have anything else to say. You summed it up pretty well. Yes, great. Yeah. That's going to do it for this episode of SPDM TV. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe to anything and everything wherever you get your podcast. Join us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Blue Sky at SPDM Crew. Check out our website. Check out our website at com. Shout out to HiFlyer Creative Studios for making our awesome logo. Greatly appreciate their support. And if you have any creative needs, contact them at HiFlyerCreative.com. Check out the other shows in our network. We've got a lot of great content on there, and I'm really proud of the work that everyone's doing. We've got a ton of different things that you could ask for. So check out the other shows on our network. And if you've got a podcast idea or you're interested in being part of the SPDM crew as a guest or collaborating, email us at gmail.com. Until next time, happy watching, friends.